Welcome to the Del training series on ADA compliance. This video highlights the department's ADA inspection process. The department will perform an ADA inspection on constructed components of the pedestrian circulation path to verify that the constructed pedestrian features meet the department's minimum accessibility standards. The goal of the department's ADA inspection is to measure and subsequently document all of the required accessibility measurements into the department's ADA construction inspection application, also known as the ACIA, for all newly constructed or reconstructed pedestrian features. The ADA inspection should occur prior to or at the same time as the initial inspection, so that the items identified during the ADA inspection can be included with the punch list that is generated from the initial inspection. This timing will also allow the contractor to address the documented deficiencies prior to demobilization from the site. The group administering construction is responsible for requesting all ADA inspections. On larger projects and open-end construction contracts, consideration should be given to submitting requests for ADA inspections to be performed as geographic groups or phases of work are completed. All approved requests for practical exceptions, RPEs, should be submitted to the engineering support section at the time of the request for an ADA inspection. Ensure final paving is done before the ADA inspection is performed. The engineering support section will schedule and then conduct the ADA inspection. The typical field inspection equipment required to perform an ADA inspection will include a steel tape measure and a smart level. The smart level that is used to perform the inspection shall follow the calibration requirements of the manufacturer. All recorded measurements of the inspected components of a pedestrian access route should be recorded as follows. Distance measurements will be recorded to the nearest inch. All slope measurements will be recorded to the nearest 0.1%. For example, a measurement of 8.27% will round to 8.3%. This precision, however, does not apply to the accessibility standards for surfaces, as additional precision is required with these measurements to ensure accessibility compliance. The elements measured for accessibility compliance will vary based on facility type. However, all constructed components of the pedestrian access route are required to comply with and will subsequently be evaluated for compliance with the surface requirements contained in Section 3.1.5 and protruding object requirements contained in Section 3.4 of the DelDOT Pass Manual. Linear paths like sidewalks and shared use paths that are longer than 25 feet 0 inches will have their width, cross slope, and grade measured and recorded at 50 feet 0 inch intervals. If the recorded measurement does not meet the running slope or cross slope accessibility standard at that increment, then an additional measurement should be taken both 5 feet 0 inches in front and behind the previous measurement and recorded. Measurements should be taken in the middle of the facility. Pedestrian street crossings are to have their width, cross slope, and grade measurements recorded. The approach pedestrian access route width is also to be recorded. The cross slope is to be measured in the middle of the crosswalk, and the grade should be recorded for each typical roadway cross slope which the pedestrian street crossing traverses. Pedestrian push buttons and other operable parts inside the public right-of-way are required to provide a clear space coordinated with the operable part that is reachable by one of the reach ranges contained in Section 3.7 of the DelDOT Pass Manual. To evaluate the reach range, it is necessary to measure and record the operable part's mounted height as well as its horizontal distance from the clear space that is provided for the user to access the operable part. In addition to measuring and recording the pertinent reach range measurements, the ADA inspector will evaluate the placement of the pedestrian signal by checking its distance from the crosswalk as well as its distance from the edge of the curb, shoulder, or pavement. Transit facilities will be inspected to ensure compliance with the accessibility standards. The area of main concern is the boarding and alighting area in front of the bus shelter. Required measurements include length and width, as well as grade and cross-slope measurements. The boarding and alighting area will also be checked to verify it has proper connections from an accessible route. The ADA inspection will also evaluate transit shelters to ensure that a 30-inch by 48-inch clear space is included within the transit shelter in accordance with the requirements in Section 3.10.2 of the DelDOT Pass Manual. Pedestrian connections are comprised of several typical elements including sloped or ramped segment, a turning space, and a detectable warning surface. These typical elements are arranged in various configurations to create the department's pedestrian connection types. The length and width of the sloped segment shall be recorded. The sloped segment shall also have its running slope and cross slope measured and recorded. The measurement should be taken at the middle of the sloped segment. The turning space shall have its running slope and cross slope measured and recorded. The measurement should be taken at the middle of the turning space. The length and width of the turning space shall also be recorded. The physical characteristics and the placement of the truncated dome detectable warning surface shall also be evaluated for compliance with the accessibility standards. Other accessibility requirements of pedestrian connections which will be evaluated during the ADA inspection include the width of the pedestrian street crossing to ensure that the pedestrian connection is wholly contained within the crosswalk markings, the grade breaks associated with the curb ramps to ensure the grade breaks are perpendicular to the path of the pedestrian's travel, the counterslope of the gutter pan or the street at the base of the pedestrian connection, evaluate and record the clear space dimensions at the bottom grade break of the ramped segment, and the ponding potential of the pedestrian connection. The ADA inspection will evaluate the accessibility where the pedestrian access route crosses railroad tracks. At-grade rail crossings are evaluated for the flangeway width, the distance from the railroad signal arm to the detectable warning surface, and the distance from the flangeway to the detectable warning surface. We hope this video was helpful in showing the ADA inspection procedures for common pedestrian features found in DelDOT rights-of-way. Other features that may be encountered and will need to be inspected for ADA compliance include accessible parking, pedestrian overpasses and underpasses, signs, street furniture, passenger loading zones, and doors, doorways, and gates. Please consult with DelDOT's Engineering Support section for guidance on ADA inspections.